Hey everyone, how's it going? Dr. Heldman here, Tech Talk Education. In this video, I want to walk you through how to hook up Visual Studio Code inside your Debian 12 Oracle VirtualBox VM. That's quite the mouthful, isn't it? So that it can run MPI code. So let's get started. There's a little bit to know about this. It's fairly in-depth. So let's see what we find out here. All right, so let's do a little quick bit of review. Here you can see that I'm in master node. I have a terminal window open. If I do an ls, I see my C files that we've created to date sitting out on the root of my home drive. And if I don't see that I have a folder available for me to store all of my MPI projects. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So what I want to do, I'm going to change into the Documents folder so you can see where we're going to put things. And if I do an ls, right now I have a folder out here that I've been using to store PowerShell scripts that I do when I'm developing PowerShell videos. But we don't have anything here for MPI. So let's do that first. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio. We want to set this up so that Visual Studio does everything that we need to do. And you get the welcome screen here, and this is actually really good. There's not anything wrong with this. On the left-hand side of VS Code, if I point to these bubbles, I get a tooltip, and it says Explorer, Search, Source Control, which is the way that I'm going to store my code elsewhere if I need to. And this thing talks to GitHub, of course, which is a Microsoft organization. This is Run and Debug. It's Control-Shift-D or Control F5. There's a variety of ways to run your code. And then here are the extensions. That's something that we'll take a look at next. But before we do that, we have to create a folder. So I'm going to click the Explorer button here, and I'm going to add a folder right here. I don't have a folder to open. I'm going to add a folder, so I'll click this hot link right here. And right now you can see that it's pointed to my home drive. I want to put these in the Documents folder just for organization purposes. You don't have to, but I'm going to open up the Documents folder here, and I'm going to create a brand new folder called MPI Projects. Now this little icon right here, this little button, is a new folder, so I will click that, and I will call this MPI_projects. I want to stay fairly cognizant of the notion that Linux doesn't really deal very well with words that are separated by spaces. It puts ticks around those. That can make it a little bit more difficult to navigate. So I'm just going to go with the standard of just doing an underscore between each one of the words. I'll click Create here, and I'm good to go. Now you'll notice down on the bottom you've got this Select Folder drop down. I don't really have a folder, so even though I click it, there's nothing there. It's telling me I'm already in the deepest folder I can be in, and I will say add that folder. All right, to prove that we do have that now, let's go back here to the terminal window and do an ls, and sure enough, there is my MPI projects folder. So that looks really good. Now that we've got all that done, we've got the folder set up, we want to move some code into the folder. Right now what we want to do is just play around with it just to make sure that we can get it to work. But later on, of course, if you got everything working, then you would need to copy all of the code into this working project folder, or when you create new projects, create them in this folder. And then you would have, when you compile them, you'd have to recopy those over to your node so that they're aware of where the code came from, or if there were updates to it. Now in this case, when I do an ls, I see that we've been doing everything out of the root of my home folder. To demonstrate what we're doing here, hooking up VS Code, I'm just going to copy hello.mpi.c. So I'll do a copy to, I'll do hello.mpi.c, and I'm going to put it into, and you've got a lot of choices here. So you could put it into tilde slash, that means home slash documents slash MPI projects, like that. And then we're going to call this hello MPI.c. You could rename it so that you knew that it was in a project folder, like you could have p hello underscore MPI.c or something like that. I don't know that that's necessary. Let's just run out and do this. So let's cat. We'll do cat tilde slash documents slash MPI projects slash hello MPI .c and hit enter, and it did make it there. Oh, no such file or directory. That's because I said project rather than projects. Hit enter. That looks great. So we know that that file is there. So that's really good. And then what we're going to do now is we want to check and make sure that we have the C++ extension installed. And so the extensions are over here. You can click this little icon here to get to the extensions window, or if I turn that off, another way to get to it is to Control Shift and X. It's Control Shift and X, and you want to make sure that you have the C and C++ extension packs installed. They get installed by default with VS Code, so I don't think you have much to worry about there. When you want to close this particular window, you could just click right here and close it. Now we're going to edit the C and C++ extension properties, and to do that we are going to need to know how to work with JSON, JavaScript object notation. There are two scripting languages that are really prevalent in the world today. One's called YAML, yet another markup language, and JSON. And if you work with like Amazon Web Services, for example, a lot of that work is done using JSON scripts, and VS Code does that as well. So we've got to look at the JSON. Just prior to doing that, let's run out here to our terminal window, and let's see if we can find out where MPI-CC is at. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to hook up VS Code with MPI-CC. MPI-CC, of course, is the GNU C compiler, but it was made for MPI code. And so now what we want to do is hook up those two things together, Visual Studio Code and MPI-CC. So I'm going to type in which MPI-CC to figure out where this lives. And it says that it lives in user bin MPI-CC. Now we need to remember that. I'll close this, but I want to remember this. I might even copy it here just so I've got it. So I'll right click and copy this guy and then close this window. I still have one open that I can always get at. By the way, this XFCE environment, I really like it. I think it's very functional. Now there's a couple of ways to get out the properties. You could dig a little into the UI, so if I click the extensions and then I click this button right here, this tool button, manage, I could get where I needed to go and go to settings. That it brings me up with a bunch of stuff here that's not really what I'm interested in, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to minimize the extension windows, and I'm going to use a new keystroke called Control Shift and P, and this is going to bring up in the search window here what we're looking for. So specifically what we want to do is we want to do the C and C++ edit configuration JSON script. So we want to take a look at the JSON here, and there's what it looks like. Now we're going to give this a new name. So up here where we have the name field here, I'm just going to go ahead and change that to OpenMPI. Get rid of all this OpenMPI like so. This workspace folder is saying, okay, I am currently in the MPI projects folder, and anything that's in there is fair game. This is perfect. There's no problem here at all. Now the next thing we want to adjust, this defines path is fine, being blank, no problem there. The compiler path is what we want to make an adjustment to. So instead of user bin GCC, we're going to change it to user bin MPI-CC like so. Additionally, the C standard is not C17, that's the latest version. We are using C11. And then here in the CPP standard, we're not using GNU++, we're using C++, and it's going to be version 14. And you can see that we've got the drop down right here where we could select it that way as well. Now we talked about IntelliSense. This is really cool. This is a long known product. It's been around a long time in Visual Studio. And the concept is that it makes sense out of what you're trying to type, and it has suggestions for you. And we're just going to leave that at, instead of Linux GCC, we're just going to take out the Linux part and make it just GCC x64. You'll notice here up at the top left part of the screen that you've got a little dot there. That means that the work has not been saved. So to save it, what you do is Control S, and that will save that, and the dot will go away. Also, you can see that you have squigglies here. It's telling you something about this. There's no quick fixes available. This is fine. I'm not worried about it. You should notice too that it does a great job of grouping things together. Just like before, we can click the left side of any of these and we can figure out right away what we have. And we can also shrink everything up just by clicking one of the line numbers. So you can see when you point to these things that you can shrink up and down various parts of the code. So that's what we've got going on there. Okay, now it's going to be important for you to take a look and see what it is that you've got so far project-wise. And it's pretty easy to see. This is very common in all the Visual Studio products. IntelliJ does this as well, all of the JetBrains products. And you've got this Explorer window here. So if I click that and open it now, I see that I have MPI projects open. It's looking in the root of MPI projects, and you can see that I've got Hello MPIC there. All I have to do is single click it, and it opens the file for me, which is really cool. We'll come back to this, and then now you've got a hidden folder called .vs code here, and here's my C and C++ properties JSON that we did a little bit earlier. I should point out to you that I went and looked at the squiggly here, and what it's telling you is that it's going to default to Windows, what is it, M service x64. If I'm writing Windows code, Linux code is going to default to Linux GCC x64. If you were to type in Linux here, you would see that IntelliSense comes up and wants to add one of these. It's not necessary, because if you leave it out, like if I take out the G and I type in the G and get IntelliSense to come in, this is another choice as well. I'll just save this, Control S, everything is cool. That's no problem at all. We'll just let that go. And it's saying failed to parse. I might have to look at that. Now when I do the save, I get the fail to parse thing here. If I click this wheel icon, I could either turn this off if I wanted to, if I knew where I was going with this. I could also look at Manage Extension, and it gives me some information about the extension. What it's saying here is that it's looking for certain compilers, and the compilers that it supports for Linux are C language and GCC, and of course we have modified this to go to MPICC. That might be something we have to keep in the back of our bonnet. For now, I'm going to close this. I'm going to close the C++ properties. I'm going to just continue to be in this VS Code folder, and we want to create what is called a launch project. A launch configuration. Now the way to get into the command palette, I'm going to create something brand new here. I'm going to close this, is Control, Shift, and P, like so, and it brings up the command palette. This is called the command palette, and we're going to type in the word launch. Like so. I'll get away from there. No matching commands. However, nothing exists yet. What we really want to be able to type in is create launch configuration. But it's not there, and the reason for that is because we're not just exactly in the correct location just yet. So we'll get rid of this for now. I do have a command prompt here, and that's really good. What I'm going to type in is open folder. I'll make sure I do this in proper case. Open folder. And here we go. We've got file open folder, developer open logs, preferences open folder, open the extensions folder, open folder settings JSON. Let's select that one because that's the one we want. And I'm going to select this folder right here. It's pointing to MPI projects and documents. That's great. I will select that. And now this is settings.json. That's not exactly what we're looking for, but it will work, and all I have to do is rename it. So the thing that we want to call this is, we want to call this launch JSON. So I'll right click this settings JSON. I will rename it, and I'm just going to call it launch.json. All right, so there's our launch.json file that we need to be able to work with this MPICC. And I will copy and paste the launch JSON code that we need here. And there's some stuff that's a little bit different that we need to take a look at. You want to include this version thing. It'll automatically include that, which is great. When you're creating these things, you want to make sure you've got this version statement here. And this 0.2.0 is fine. We've got the name is going to be OpenMPI. The type is going C++. We're going to launch something here. It's saying that we're going to launch file directory name, file base name, no extension. And now this is where the MPI code's coming in at. So we're telling it the number of processes that we're going to use is going to be 4 in this case. We can adjust as needed as we test with this stuff. Stop at entry is set to false. Keyword is the file directory name, external console. We're looking really good here. Everything's good here. So we have to have this launch.json code sitting out here, and I'll Control S to save that. And what I'm going to do now is simply restart Visual Studio. I'm just going to kill this machine this way by clicking this X here, and then I will double click it to reopen it, just like you would any conventional window, whether in Windows or Mac or wherever. Now what I've done is I've closed everything. I've got the project window open right here, and I have clicked to OpenMPI, hello-mpi.c. I've got a squiggly here, and if I look at this, it says I cannot open the source file mpi.h. That's because we don't have the header file there. We have to path this header file. Okay, now the way to find this, we could type in which mpi.h like so, and it doesn't yield anything. So what we have to do is type in a special command to figure out where MPI is at. And so what I'm going to do is just query the dpackage unit. This is the Debian package command manager. I'm going to do attack capital L. I'm going to look inside lib OpenMPI tac dev because we've already installed that library. And I'm going to do a pipe, and I want to have it search for mpi.h. And we get a whole bunch of listings here. Take a look at some of these. This one says Fortran, so that's an old scientific language. It's been around a long time. It's still around. A lot of people, I've had students that have gotten jobs where they're still using Fortran, so it's still a very popular language. I think this is the one we're looking for here. Linux GNU OpenMPI include mpi.h. And so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab this guy right here, right click and copy it. Then I will come back here and edit this file here because we need to point to the exact location of, let me see if I can paste this, Control V. There we go. We need to have the exact location of where the mpi.h header file is at. Another cool trick that you can use to locate some of the files, like we went through, we queried the dpackage editor, there's another way to do this. MPI has an entire help screen that's available to you. So if you type in MPICC, and then you do tac show me :help, you're going to get information about what MPICC can show you. And the include directories are right here, so we can grab those just by querying that. So I'll hit the up arrow again, and instead of saying show me help, I'm going to say show me include DIRs, include directories, and it comes up and it shows you that we have this include directory here and this include directory here. So that might be something else that we would consider when we're figuring out where everything lives within Linux inside an OpenMPI system. Well, what do you think? Are we missing anything? I think we are, and the thing that we're missing is the hosts file. Let's clear the screen and do an ls. And we need to tell it that we have all these hosts that are out there. So what we want to do is copy this guy over to our project folder. So we'll copy MPI tac hosts to /documents/MPI projects. We'll do an ls with ~documents/MPI projects, just to make sure it made it over there. That looks really good. We're not quite done. We also have to edit launch JSON. And we can also do ourselves a favor by getting rid of this oversubscribe. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say that we have our host file right here, like so. We're going to go with NP of 6 here, the number of processors of 6. Workspace folder hello API is still fine. So I'll save this, Control S. Notice here that MPI host has come into play now. I just check and make sure that it's okay. This just appeared because of the fact that I copied it over to the working folder. Let's try and rerun this program and see what we get. So we'll say run without debugging. Still getting this 0 through 1, so we have to go fight this battle a little bit more and see what we're doing. Another thing we might consider is copying that updated binary over back to our compute node. So I'm going to change directory to documents/MPI projects. I need a capital P there. Linux is case sensitive. I will do an ls to look at the date, ls tac l. And let's see if that has updated. It says today's date. This is when I'm recording this thing, so that looks good. Let's do a secure copy of hello MPI to Bill at compute node 1 and Bill at compute node 2. Let's minimize this and rerun the code, see if that works for us. And I neglected to add one thing to launch JSON here. So after host file, we want to put in this same thing, only we want to point it to our actual MPI hosts files. So we'll say that this is going to be pointed to MPI tac hosts. We'll put a comma in there so we don't get sick on that. So now we've got the host file pointing to MPI hosts. And then we've got these arguments pointing to hello MPI. Let's do a save, Control S. Go back here and run the program. Let's see what we have. Run without debugging. It's still not working, so another thing that I'm looking at is we want to change this CWD entry to workspace folder. So I'll just take and copy that here. Control C and paste it over $file dir name here. Boom. Control S to save. Let's run this code again. Now what I'm really trying to illustrate here is that you don't have anything in the output window and you're not going to get anything in the output window using VS Code. You do have a terminal, and you're going to have to manually run the command from within the terminal. So I do think that's a weak part of using VS Code alongside this. But let's see if this thing runs. So we'll run mpicc, and we'll tell it that we want to do hello mpi.c. Our output is going to be hello mpi, hello_mpi. Let's see if this compiles and runs for us and creates the file. That looks good. If we do an ls tac l here, we will see that we have hello MPI and it's dated at 12:42, which is the time that I did that there. And now we can copy this over. So you can do all of this right within your screen. So I will secure copy hello_MPI to Bill at compute node 1. It does just fine. And Bill at compute node 2. Clear the screen. And we can also test things here too. So you could test if SSH is working. So we could SSH into compute node 1 and make sure we've got it. That looks good. I'll exit here. I'll hit my up arrow, go to compute node 2. That looks great. So everything looks like it's working. We can also ping the host, so I can ping 192.168.1.3 is compute node 1. That looks good. 1.4 is compute node 2. Oops. Compute node 2, that looks good. All right. Let's see if we can run this code now. Run without debugging. Now it could be that because we've changed to a new program folder that it's not working. And I'll tell you why I think everything's okay here, because if I go to terminal, it returns master rank out of 0, which is not what I'm looking for. But if I go to debug console, it tells me that this exited with return code 0, which is correct. So let's try this. Let's go out to, we could do this from SSH as well. In fact, let's do that. I'll go back here to master node. I'll go to the terminal. I will do an SSH to bill at compute node 1 and hit enter and clear the screen, and now I'm in compute node 1. You can see from the prompt. And I will make a directory called, I'll change into the documents folder first. I will make a directory called MPI projects, and I will cd into MPI projects just to make sure that it is actually out there and working. Nothing in there so far. I'll exit to get out of compute node 1. I will clear the screen and do the same thing. So I'll SSH into bill at compute node 2. This would be handy if this was, you were unable to get to a machine, like you couldn't just go right over to it and pull it up and do this work. You could SSH into it and do it that way. So now I'm in compute node 2, and I will cd into documents, and I will make a directory called MPI projects. I want to misspell that, don't I? And I'll cd into MPI projects just to make sure that everything's working. Okay, that looks good, so I'll exit compute node 2. I'll clear the screen. I'll copy these files over again. So let's copy them to the new location. We're going to secure copy to bill at, bill at compute node 1 colon tilde slash documents slash MPI projects. See if that works for me. I keep forgetting the inning slash. I'll hit the up arrow here. Boom. I'm forgetting something equally as important. Sorry about that. Up arrow. I need to tell it what to copy, so I wanted to copy hello MPI. To bill a compute node 1 documents MPI projects. Let's see if it gets over there. Boom, we like that a lot. That's a very good sign that it's there. Beautiful. And we'll do the same thing for compute node 2. This is a lot easier once we've typed it out already. And let's see if that works. That worked great too. All right. Let's go ahead and we can kill the build window just to make sure. And we will run and rerun this. Let's see if it works. While we're troubleshooting, let's run a command here. This is a really cool command to help you make sure that we're all communicating together. Here it is. So you type in MPI run, tac host file, MPI hosts, number of processes is 6. You just want it to return the host name. You hit enter, and it returns that just fine. So we can see all the host names. This is something that I might want to chase down later, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Once we know that that's working, we can also just tell it that we want to run it /hello MPI. Use the same thing, MPI run, host file, MPI host, number of processes, but you substitute host name for /hello MPI. And this returns what we're looking for as well. So that looks really good. That all seems to be working. And sadly, this is where you're going to get to. I'm not going to go through the trouble of troubleshooting this MIT Magic Cookie thing here. I'm not worried about it really. But it is working, and the way that you can validate that it's working is in debug console. You are getting a return code 0, which means success. That's good. Your terminal here is showing that you are getting the information out of MPI that you're looking for. Sadly, once everything is hooked up, you're really not going to be able to hit run without debugging. And it'll go to success, but it's not going to output what it is you're looking for. You will still have to run the program from the terminal window here, just like we did here. So if I clear the screen and I hit my up arrow, I can run that program now. Now, what does that buy me? Well, so it's a little bit of a convoluted workaround, but what you're getting here is the ability to use a full-strength IDE, integrated development environment, that's going to show you line numbers, it's going to have IntelliSense, show you the different commands you can key in, and we have it working. However, you need to know that you're going to wind up working with JSON. You have to copy things over, you have to path things out. I can get rid of this line, for example. I don't need this because now I've got that working, so I'll just get rid of that so it looks a little better. That's kind of the concept that we've got going on here. Now in future videos I am going to use VS Code with this. You'll see me running it from the terminal window. The output window doesn't show anything. It's not going to show anything there. Debug console shows me that it's good run, and terminal shows me the output when I run the program. So it is working okay, and that's all I've got for now. I just wanted to show you this is not the end of the story with Linux. Linux is always going to be this little bit of a a tug of war between you and Linux, trying to get things running and going back and configuring different files and things like that. Now look, if you can make this run better, I would love to hear from you. Please put this in the comments. If you come up with more elegant solutions, I'd love to know about it. And I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I would just ask you to share with your friends, subscribe. You're welcome to leave comments. If you have more fixes, better fixes than I'm able to put in here, I'm happy to I'll make another movie and I'll show what you have supplied as well. And I hope you're enjoying this. I really enjoy making these movies. I enjoy teaching. I love technology. And I'm wishing you a very, very beautiful spring day. Have a good day. We'll talk to you in the next video.